Miss Tracy, you went through IVF 6 times to have this baby. Are you really going to give up? Does Mr. Peter agree with this decision too? I'm sure he will agree. After a sleepless night, Tracy's voice was hoarse, but she seemed clearer than ever. The surgery is scheduled for a week later. A week later is Tracy and Peter's wedding anniversary. Well, it started on that day, so it should end on that day. She booked a flight to leave, and Tracy gently placed her hand on her stomach, where a tiny life was growing. For the past 5 years, she had been eagerly looking forward to it. But now, on the day her wish came true, she was going to let it go. Ding! Her phone buzzed again with that trending topic that's been up for half a month. Peter spent a fortune on a luxury estate, planting a garden full of roses for their 5th anniversary. He once again announced to the world that Tracy was the only one for him. Countless comments were full of envy for their love. Who says younger man older woman relationships don't last? Peter's best gift was his love-struck heart. Rumor has it Tracy is 6 years older than him, and Peter pursued her for 3 years before they got together. Everyone knows Peter is crazy about his wife. 2 years ago, there was an earthquake, and Tracy was trapped. Peter risked his life to save her. When he was rescued, he was covered in injuries, yet he still comforted the terrified Tracy. News showed Peter holding his wife and crying. And last year, a media outlet mocked Tracy for being too old to have kids. Peter sued them into bankruptcy. Peter openly stated he didn't care whether they had kids or not, but he wouldn't allow anyone to hurt Tracy over it. Seeing that comment, Tracy couldn't help but smile bitterly. No one else can hurt her, and Peter indeed did that. Even if it meant cutting into her, he'd hold the knife himself. When Tracy first found out she was pregnant, she couldn't wait to tell Peter the good news. But then she got a message from a stranger. There was a picture of a pregnant woman. The young woman smiled sweetly, Peter on one knee, kissing her pregnant belly with a look of bliss and satisfaction. Tears streamed down her face. 6 painful rounds of IVF, and now this ultrasound photo seemed to mock Tracy as if she were just a joke. On their wedding day, Peter swore. He promised to love her for a lifetime. But his lifetime love turned out to be just about 5 years long. Since that's how it is, Tracy didn't want Peter anymore. And she wouldn't let her child be born into a lie. The door opened. Tracy's tear-filled eyes met Peter's, and he immediately panicked. What's wrong, honey? What happened? Don't cry, I'll fix it. He glanced at the ultrasound photo beside her and quickly wrapped her in a hug. It's okay if the IVF didn't work. Even if we never have kids, it doesn't matter. Having you is enough for me. Come now, don't cry. It breaks my heart. Tracy gave a smile that was more miserable than tears. How fake. After all, he had a child on the way with someone else. Peter didn't notice her distress. He kept coaxing her. Our anniversary is in a week. I planted a sea of roses for you and got blue fireworks ready. We'll watch them together, okay? Isn't blue your favorite color? Tracy stared at him blankly, smiling through her tears. He had forgotten, she never liked the color blue. A week later, I'll give you an anniversary gift too. Peter's eyes lit up with surprise, gently wiping her happy tears. Honey, I can't wait. I'm looking forward to your surprise. Tracy silently looked at the ultrasound photo. She hoped Peter would truly be surprised. The next day at lunchtime, Peter took Tracy to his family home for dinner. Peter's mom, Carrie, didn't like Tracy. She hadn't even attended their wedding. Ever since, Peter moved out with her, only visiting his parents once a month. Don't worry about whatever my mom says later. I'm always on your side, honey. We'll have dinner and leave, Peter assured Tracy, holding her hand. As soon as they walked in, they heard Carrie's laughter. The baby is so adorable, with tiny hands and feet. It's heart-melting. Tracy's face turned ashen, and she froze on the spot. She recognized the person next to Carrie, it was the woman from the pregnancy photo. "This is my friend's daughter, Linda," Carrie said. "She's expecting, and her family is abroad. They asked me to look after her. I just went with her for a prenatal check this morning." Carrie brought Linda over to show her ultrasound photos to Peter, with a meaningful look. "Take a look, does the baby look like their parents?" Peter's expression faltered, and he cautioned, "Mom, stop messing around." "How would I know? I just met Linda today." Carrie glanced at Tracy and pushed Linda forward. "Let me introduce you properly. Linda, this is Peter." Linda blushed. "Peter." Peter nodded and wrapped his arm around Tracy. "This is your sister-in-law, Tracy." "Nice to meet you, sister-in-law." Tracy felt a chill run down her spine. She couldn't stop her hands from trembling. So everyone in Peter's family knew about Linda, except her. "What's wrong?" Peter asked with concern. "Are you feeling faint? Is it your blood sugar?" He grabbed some candies, unwrapped one, and brought it to her lips. Tracy mechanically opened her mouth. It was sweet, but all she tasted was bitterness. Peter instructed the staff to start dinner and led her to the table. "You barely had breakfast, so eat more now." Tracy silently picked up her water glass, and Peter noticed, switching it for a warm one. "Your period's coming, don't drink cold water, or your stomach will ache again. The shrimp is really good today, let me peel some for you." Through the meal, Peter barely ate. But Tracy's bowl never emptied. "Peter is so good to his wife, I envy you, sister-in-law." Linda chimed in, "I like shrimp too, Peter, could you peel some for me?" Peter ignored the bowl she slid over. "Peel your own. I'm only peeling for my wife." Tracy had a sip of warm water, holding back the strong urge to vomit. "Give it to her, I don't feel like eating." Peter paused, looking almost childish as he pouted. "Then I'll have it myself, sis, how could you give away the shrimp I peeled?" Tracy's eyes were full of mockery. "You've already slept together, so why bother pretending?" Carrie set her chopsticks down with a serious look. "Tracy, is this your 6th attempt with IVF? Since Linda's here, maybe you can learn from her." "Auntie, I don't really have much advice," Linda said, shaking her head shyly. "My boyfriend and I got lucky on our first try. It happened on my birthday actually, maybe it was just because I was in a good mood." "Yeah, well, my daughter-in-law's 10 years older than you, can't really compare," Carrie said sarcastically. "I plan to have Linda stay with us, take care of her, maybe catch some of her good fortune and fill up our house with grandkids." Just then, Peter jumped in. "No way." Carrie shot Tracy a colder look. "What's wrong? Can't have kids yourself and can't stand others getting pregnant either? Done talking?" Peter's face was like stone. "Mom, if you want me to never come back here, just keep it up." "I'm sorry, I really shouldn't be here." Linda stood up, eyes red, and quickly left. Peter instinctively took a step to follow her but checked himself and stopped. "I'm done." Tracy watched the whole scene unfold with cold detachment and got up to leave. Just as she stepped out of Peter's house, Tracy received a message validation request from Linda. "March 5th was my birthday and our first time. He didn't let me get out of bed all day." That same day, Tracy had her 5th failed IVF attempt. She shut herself in her room, not eating or drinking, for a whole day and night. Finally, getting a grip on her emotions, she opened her door to find Peter looking worn out, waiting outside. She even felt sorry for him and comforted him instead. Turns out, Peter had just come back from Linda's bed. What a joke. What a tragedy. The needles she faced over 5 years didn't hurt, but now her heart felt like it was being ripped apart. "Why are you crying, honey?" Peter came rushing over. Her tears sent him into a panic. He instinctively glanced at her phone. The screen darkened. Peter didn't pay it any more attention and pulled Tracy into his arms, softly patting her back. "There, don't cry. It hurts me to see you like this. It's my fault for bringing you here to be mistreated. She's my mom, You don't have to put up with her for my sake. Hit me, yell at me, whatever you want, as long as it makes you feel better. On the drive back, Peter kept trying to soothe her. Tracy closed her eyes and pretended to sleep. Her phone kept buzzing with notifications, and for the rest of the trip, Peter was glued to his own phone, replying to texts. When they pulled up at their home, Peter gently touched her head. Honey, there's something urgent at work. Stay home and wait for me. I'll be back early tonight, okay? Tracy quietly got out of the car. After Peter left, she approved Linda's friend request. Then, she opened Linda's social media page. Pinned at the top were 2 photos. The first showed Peter's back as he was planting roses. The second was a field of blue roses. The caption read, "I'll forgive you this time because of these blue roses. Waiting for you to sweet-talk me." Tracy felt a heaviness in her chest. So, it's Linda who likes blue. The roses weren't for her at all. She hailed a cab straight to their estate. As soon as she arrived, she saw Peter's black Bentley. Near the field of roses, Peter stood with his back to Tracy, unaware she was there. If it weren't for Tracy not being able to have kids, I wouldn't be with you. She's my limit, yet you still throw a fit in front of her? Linda's eyes were teary. Then why come to me at all? Just leave me alone, right? Don't cry, Peter said, his tone softening. As long as you behave, I'll take care of you forever. Linda immediately smiled and jumped into his arms. I can be even more obedient, just say the word. I cleared a whole afternoon just for this. You think I don't mean it? Peter husked, lifting Linda impatiently as they headed into the estate. Linda, turning her head, gave Tracy a taunting smile. She'd seen Tracy from the start. Inside, shadows twisted and tangled. On the side of the road, Tracy watched self-destructively, even breathing felt cold. It was like her heart was being hooked and pulled apart, each tug leaving a bloody gash. Here to check it out too? Said a woman taking photos nearby, breaking the silence. Peter and Tracy have held it together after all these years, really something to envy. Tracy must have saved the galaxy in a past life to land a guy like Peter, she chuckled. Tears formed in Tracy's eyes. But she didn't want this anymore. Peter gave her this so-called exclusive estate, and here he was with another woman. The woman examined Tracy more closely and froze. No wonder she mistook her. Linda looked so much like the 24-year-old version of herself, from when she first met Peter. Men, all the same. The woman's expression turned wistful. Peter's not that bad, really. Maybe he just wants a kid so badly. Even the other woman is a copy of you. How about just letting it go? Pretend you don't know. Life's the same when you go back. No, it's different. Tracy's voice was nearly a whisper. Peter finding a woman who resembled her only made her feel more disgusted, not grateful. Leaving the rose garden, Tracy headed to the hospital, picked up medication for a post-abortion procedure, and took it home. She placed the meds on the coffee table and stared at them for a long time, nearly overwhelmed with heartache. The door suddenly swung open. Peter rushed in, his shirt a mess with mismatched buttons, nearly bumping into a chair. He looked her over, pale-faced. Honey, why did you go to the hospital? Tracy's medical card was attached to Peter's phone. He'd gotten the notifications about her prescriptions. Babe, say something, you're scaring me here. Tracy handed him the bag of meds. The doctor said to try a new set of meds. Maybe it'll make the next IVF attempt more successful. Thank goodness you're okay. You scared the hell out of me. Without even glancing at the bag, Peter tossed it onto the table. Tracy gave a bitter laugh. He used to scrutinize every medication she took, just to make sure there wouldn't be any side effects. He always said as he couldn't bear the IVF pain for her, he had to remind himself she was suffering for him. And now, she handed him post-miscarriage care meds. And he didn't even look at them. The unfamiliar mix of perfume and roses in the air made Tracy nauseous, Even her stomach started to hurt. She clutched her abdomen instinctively. Did you catch a chill? Need me to warm your tummy? Peter bent down, concerned, trying to help. Tracy swatted his hand away. You smell bad. Peter sniffed and laughed. Is it the smell of roses? I've been thinking about our 5th wedding anniversary, worried I wouldn't be prepared. I had to go to the rose garden several times a day. I'll go shower and change. But today, he clearly said he was going to the office. Tracy didn't bother to call him out. She replied softly, okay. After Peter left, Tracy picked up her phone. For the past 5 years, Tracy's social circle was limited to Peter's friends. She didn't have friends of her own. If she were to leave, there were only a few people she needed to explain to. Except for her younger brother, Ethan, her only remaining family. But as she found Ethan's number, she hesitated to call. Ethan really admired Peter, his brother-in-law. She worried things might get complicated. Maybe it's better to wait till she's about to leave. At night, Peter lay next to her, gently rubbing her stomach. Honey, I've handed over my work for the next couple of days. You always feel the worst during the first 2 days of your period. I worry about you being alone at home. Tracy replied absent-mindedly, not really taking it to heart. In the middle of the night, Tracy was woken by the sound of a notification. Sorry, did I wake you? I need to handle some work, I'll put my phone on silent. Sweetie, go back to sleep. Tracy lay there with her eyes closed, but she couldn't get back to sleep. Peter's left hand was on her stomach, but he still managed to use his right hand to reply to messages. The warmth from his fingers, along with his occasional stifled laughs, cut her deeply, like a knife. Sweetheart? Peter's voice probed. As he wished, Tracy didn't respond. Peter withdrew his hand and quietly left the room, but his hushed movements betrayed his eagerness. You dare send that kind of photo? Just wait, I'll make sure you can't get out of bed tomorrow. After the door closed, Tracy's phone vibrated a few times. Messages from Linda. Sis, are you past your prime and not charming anymore? Peter was all over me the whole afternoon and still wasn't satisfied. He said tonight he wants to try new moves with me, doesn't consider me a pregnant woman at all. I really pity you. While I'm pregnant, Peter puts in effort, but you want to be pregnant and can only rely on cold test tubes, yet can't even make that work. Tracy felt chilled all over despite the heated room. She got a hot water bottle, and lay back down. For 5 years, she felt that meeting Peter too late made the remainder of her life too short. But now, with only 5 days left, it felt unbearably long. Tracy woke up late, having fallen asleep late. As she stepped out of the bedroom, Peter came in from outside. Honey, I got your favorite steamed shrimp dumplings. Peter proudly pulled out the to-go container. I rushed back all the way to keep it warm for you. Every time Peter made her angry, he'd buy shrimp dumplings to cheer her up. Tracy never really loved them, she'd just forgive him because she loved him. What about today? What's this for? Feeling guilty after spending all night with another woman? Honey, did you see the message I sent when I left? When did you wake up? For some reason, Tracy's attitude made Peter oddly uneasy. Haven't seen it, just woke up. Tracy picked up her chopsticks, not willing to punish herself for his sake. Seeing her unchanged expression, Peter finally relaxed. I'll deal with some work first. After you're done eating, I'll take a walk with you. As Tracy ate, she opened her phone. Linda updated her status. He spoils me so much. I casually mentioned wanting shrimp dumplings, and he went out to get me some right away. She attached a photo of dumplings, from the same place as the ones Tracy had. Sitting across the table, Peter chuckled. The next moment, a comment appeared on the post. Peter, you know me well. Soon, Carrie commented too. He should spoil you. Ask for whatever you want. You're the deserving one, not like someone taking up space and not producing. Peter could also see Carrie's comments. Tracy looked up to see Peter's reaction, but found him in high spirits. Tracy smiled and blocked all of Carrie's contacts in one go. She'd wanted to do that for a long time. Before finishing breakfast, Peter got a call from Carrie. Her shrill voice boomed, and Peter frowned at Tracy. "Mom wants to send you Chinese medicine. Did you block her?" "No need to send it. I won't drink it." Carrie loved sending strange herbal remedies, bitter and useless. Tracy forced herself to take them over the years, only to be mocked by Carrie for wasting her good intentions. "But you can't just block her." "But the chat history is still there." Tracy pushed her phone over. Her most recent message from Carrie read, "If you can't have kids, what kind of woman are you? You couldn't even keep the one you had. Our family's lineage can't break with you." In the first year of marriage, Tracy had been pregnant once. At 7 months, the baby suddenly stopped moving. They had to induce labor. Carrie had made countless complaints like that. Tracy knew Peter tried to defend her, spoke well for her, so she never mentioned it to him. But this time, Peter frowned deeply. "After all, she's my mom, and you should understand her side a bit." "And who understands me?" Tracy let out a cold laugh. "Peter, you knew how hard that was for me. But have you ever thought there might be a reason for the miscarriage?" Peter sighed. "Maybe you ate something wrong, or used the wrong makeup." Tears instantly welled up in Tracy's eyes. "Don't cry." Peter realized he'd misspoken. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean it like that." The first time she was pregnant, Tracy was more careful than anyone. She never wore makeup or dared to eat out. She didn't even travel far. When they lost the baby, it crushed her. Peter didn't leave her side, staying with her 24/7. He told her over and over, "It's not your fault. Even if we never have kids, it's okay. You're all that matters to me." For a whole month, he helped her climb out of despair. But now, she finally understood. He, too, thought it was her fault. "I'm sorry, you can hit me or shout at me, but please don't cry." Peter pulled her into a hug. "It's my fault, I'm an idiot." Tracy couldn't break free from his embrace, tears kept falling. But deep down she knew. Peter didn't just accidentally say the wrong thing, he was trying to blame everything on her. To justify his cheating. Peter became even more apologetic. "I'll explain it to my mom. When she learns how to respect you, you can consider adding her back, okay?" With tears, Tracy laughed. "Peter, there's no future for us anymore." For the next 2 days, Peter stayed home with her. Even though Tracy barely acknowledged him, he still cooked her favorite dishes. But Linda's social media had new posts again. Peter's ordered baby supplies had arrived. Peter booked a top-notch maternity center for Linda. Peter ordered special meals for pregnant women to be delivered. Peter liked every post. That night, Peter brought her some water for a foot soak when his phone rang. It was Ethan calling, saying he'd landed a major client and invited everyone to celebrate together. He put the call on speaker. "Sis, I haven't seen you in a while, you and brother-in-law should come, okay? It's only 2 days before you leave, who knows when we'll meet again." Tracy couldn't refuse her only brother. "All right." Ethan had invited some friends for a barbecue at the courtyard. As soon as they arrived, Ethan came up. "Sis, I know you don't like the smell of smoke, so I asked them to put them away. How's that for a considerate brother?" No sooner had he spoken than someone revealed the truth. Obviously, Peter had specifically messaged to remind us, "How is that your credit?" Peter treats Tracy with such care, it's in his bones. Ethan laughed too, saying, "Of course, otherwise how could I accept him as a brother-in-law?" Peter rolled up his sleeves and started grilling Tracy's favorite dishes. "No matter how good, my wife deserves it. Wife, sit over here, away from the smoke. Tell me what you feel like eating, and I'll grill it for you." Tracy remained silent, uninterested in playing along with him. Then Ethan suddenly spoke up, "Brother-in-law, we're out of wine. can you help me fetch a few boxes from the basement? Peter touched Tracy's head. Wait here for me, I'll go help out. No sooner had they left than Linda sent over a location. Linda was also at there. Tracy's heart sank instantly. Worried Ethan might act rashly, she quickly went after them. But the confrontational scene she expected didn't happen. What she saw were the three of them standing together, chatting happily. Linda hooked her finger around Peter's. Your son kicked me several times. He misses his dad. Brother-in-law, you guys continue. I'll go get the wine, I won't disturb you. Ethan gave a knowing smile and made space for them. As soon as he left, Peter pulled Linda into his arms. Only the son misses me? You know the answer. Peter smiled and kissed Linda as they entered a room. The very room Tracy had before she got married. All the warmth drained from Tracy, she almost lost her footing. When their parents unexpectedly passed away, she was only 13. She went to school and worked several jobs to take care of Ethan, doing all sorts of dirty and tiring work. On her wedding day, Ethan cried his heart out seeing her off. He said, Sis, if Peter ever bullies you, you're always welcome back home, your room will always be ready for you. But now, the two people she loved most combined forces to hurt her deeply. When she came to, Tracy was back in the courtyard as Ethan emerged with the wine. Their eyes met. Tracy mustered a slight smile. Where is he? Brother-in-law is heating up some milk for you. He said you can't drink cold stuff. Seriously, where else would you find such a great brother-in-law? Wine isn't fully stocked yet, let me go remind him. Tracy's eyes turned red, her nails digging into her palm. How many times did they deceive her to be able to lie without flinching? She couldn't stay a moment longer. I'm tired, heading back. Should I have him take you? Tracy looked straight at him. No need, I don't want to ruin his good time. Ethan noticed Tracy's expression and felt a bit guilty. Then I'll call you a car. Before getting in, Tracy took one last look at the brother she raised. Ethan's eyes flickered. What's up, sis? Tracy turned away, remained silent, and shut the car door. As soon as she got home, Peter called. Why'd you leave without letting me take you? It's so late, how can I not worry? At the same time, Linda messaged her. Was your first time on this bed? He said you were too prudish, only had a couple of moves. No wonder he held back for 2 days around you, he almost tore me apart. On the wedding night, Peter immediately noticed her nervousness. He brought her from the wedding room back home, to a familiar setting. The first time, Peter was extremely patient, caring about her feelings. Gentle and considerate. He cried when she cried too. Sister, I love you, I'll make sure you never regret marrying me. But now, she truly regretted it. In the call, Peter hesitantly called her name. Tracy covered her mouth tightly, too choked up to speak. Is the signal bad? Don't worry, brother-in-law, I booked the ride, it shows my sister has returned home. Ethan's voice came through. You go keep Linda company, I'll message my sister in a bit. Be careful, don't slip up. Ethan laughed, my sister won't suspect. And besides, she can't have kids, can't stop others, right? Ethan. Peter snapped, don't talk about your sister like that. Alright, I won't. The call ended. Ethan's message arrived as promised. Since brother-in-law came out rarely, he's sticking around to drink some with me. Sis, I've got him covered, don't worry. Then came Peter's message. Honey, if you're sleepy, go to bed early. Ethan landed his first big contract, tonight I'll celebrate with him on behalf of us both. Don't wait up. Tracy didn't reply to any of them. In that moment, the storm inside her heart suddenly calmed. She wiped her tears. She would wait no more. She wasn't going to wait for people who didn't deserve it. That included him and Ethan. She got up, headed back to her room, and finally got a good night's sleep, leaving behind all her worries. On their anniversary morning, Peter made her a heartfelt breakfast. Honey, You'll see the fireworks I planned for you tonight, he said. Tracy just smiled and didn't reply. I'll head to the office first, then I'll watch it with you tonight, he added. Just as he was getting up, Tracy pulled out the divorce papers she had prepared and pushed them in front of him. Sign them. Peter flipped right to the last page and signed without reading. Aren't you gonna check what's in it? She asked. It's just about adjusting the IVF plan, right? Whatever you think is best. Watching him leave, Tracy couldn't help but laugh, because, even now, he'd say he was doing it all for her. She swallowed the medicine that had been sitting on the table for 6 days. Her hand gently touched her belly, and her throat felt tight. Sorry, baby. She'd given him so many chances, and he'd never taken any of them. Tracy packed her bags and headed to the hospital alone. 4 weeks pregnant, the fetus already has a heartbeat and is developing normally. Are you sure you don't want it? The doctor asked. No, Tracy replied. Such a shame, after last time, when the wrong herbal medicine stopped the pregnancy. To go through all that and then have to terminate, it'll be even harder to conceive again, the doctor sighed. Wait, last time was because of the wrong herbal medicine? Tracy was stunned, her throat dry. She had to ask. Yeah, didn't Peter tell you? The doctor replied with a confused look. So, he knew too. Tracy's ears were ringing. The first time she was pregnant, Carrie would bring her herbal pregnancy supplements every week. They were so bitter, and Peter would coax her into drinking every drop. After the procedure that followed, she was told she needed IVF. She'd always thought the failure was an accident. 6 IVF attempts over 5 years, 5 failures. Peter watched her torment herself over guilt, never once telling her it wasn't her fault. Are you okay, Miss Tracy? The doctor handed her a tissue, and only then did she realize she was crying. If you need more time to think, no, Tracy cut her off, wiping her tears. I'm doing it. As the anesthesia kicked in and she lost consciousness, she mumbled to the doctor, will it hurt, the baby? The doctor's face froze in silence. Tracy drifted into darkness. When she came to, it was hours later. With some strength regained, she got out of bed. Passing by the maternity ward, she stopped in her tracks. Not far away, Peter was walking out of a consultation room with Linda. Did you feel it? The baby said hi and thanks Dad for protecting us, Linda said, pulling his hand to her belly, eyes wet with tears. Peter, it hurt earlier, I was so scared. Silly, Peter soothingly kissed her forehead. I won't let anything happen to you or the baby. Linda leaned into him, meeting Tracy's gaze with a smug smile, her voice loud and intentional. Stay with me tonight, okay? Peter paused. You can catch fireworks with her many more times. Our baby, though, might come any moment, and if I have pains tonight again, Linda's voice broke, Peter, I'm really scared. After a long moment, he replied, all right, giving in. Knew you'd put me first, she teased. Tracy watched them walk off, her eyes icy cold. The topic trended online for 22 days. The whole city anticipated Peter's grand fireworks for her at 7 p.m. He knew, yet chose to leave her alone. Tracy sent Peter one final message, your surprise is ready. Then, she headed to the airport. Tracy turned off her phone, handed it to a courier, and wrote Peter's address for delivery. At 7 p.m., blue fireworks illuminated the sky, breathtaking and bright. In the cheering crowd, Tracy boarded her flight without looking back. Peter replied to her message too late, honey, I'm on my way. Can't wait to see your surprise. But as fireworks lit up outside, he'd gotten no further messages from Tracy. A strange sense of unease filled him. Just as he reached for his phone to call, Linda stopped him. You promised to be with me tonight. I can't leave Tracy by herself, he said, frowning, worried about Tracy. He didn't know how anxious she was. Their 5th anniversary fireworks were only meaningful if he was there with her. You'll still miss them if you rush there now, Linda coaxed, tugging the ribbon on his robe, letting it slip to the floor. Peter's breath hitched, though he said, "Stop it." Linda leaned in. "I promised a reward, aren't you interested?" Her words were answered by a low grunt. Linda's laugh was teasing. Peter pulled her into an embrace, kissing her fiercely. His phone rang a few times, but none bothered to check. 2 hours later, Peter dressed hastily and drove to the rose garden. The fireworks had ended, leaving only a few stragglers at the gate. He mussed his clothes a bit, taking a breath, and walked in. "Sorry for being late, honey. Punish me however you like." But inside, only staff cleaning up. No Tracy in sight. "Where's Tracy?" he demanded. "Peter, Tracy didn't come," a worker replied. His face darkened. "What are you saying?" "She couldn't not be here." But she really hadn't been there. His throat went dry, a mounting unease spreading through him. He checked his phone again, hoping the missed calls had been from Tracy. But they weren't. 7 calls in a row, all from Carrie. Peter flipped through his phone again, but there was no word from Tracy. How could that be? Instinctively, Peter dialed Tracy's number, but it was off. His face turned pale as he rushed out of the rose garden and drove home. "Wife, it's all my fault. My brother-in-law got into a fight, and I went to sort it out. That's why I was late." Peter's voice trailed off. There was no Tracy in the living room. The empty villa looked like a model home. Anything related to Tracy was gone. Peter instinctively glanced to the side. There used to be a giant wedding photo hanging there. But now, it was gone too. The most unlikely thought crossed his mind. Had Tracy left him? No way. He just missed watching the fireworks with her. She's got such a soft heart. All he needed was to make some time to coax her and maybe buy a box of steamed shrimp dumplings. "Sis, don't scare me. You know your husband cares about you the most. Not seeing you freaks me out. You said you prepared a surprise for me? I haven't even found out what it is yet." Peter mumbled as he walked upstairs. The bedroom was also empty. Peter quickly opened the closet. Half of it was empty, only Tracy's clothes were missing. Peter's mind exploded. His vision went black, and he almost couldn't stand. Footsteps echoed behind him. Peter turned around, hoping for a lifesaver. It was a maid. "Mr. Peter, Tracy said she left a surprise for you." Tracy's surprise was in the nursery. That nursery was a project they'd done together when Tracy was pregnant for the first time. After they lost the baby, Tracy couldn't bear to go in. Peter only went in occasionally, and eventually, not at all. As he opened the door, Peter's hands shook. He dropped the key twice. The door finally opened. Peter immediately saw an envelope on the table. He stumbled and knocked over a storage box. A thick stack of test reports and hundreds of syringes spilled across the floor. All these things, collected over the years, and not even everything. On the storage box was writing from 4 years ago. "Peter, remember this, every hardship Tracy endures is for you. You must promise to treat her twice as well, love her forever, and never wrong her. If you can't do that, you don't deserve her love." The writing was faded, but every word was etched in Peter's heart. Panic rose in him. Peter picked up the envelope carefully. Inside was an ultrasound from a week ago. Tracy was pregnant. Peter's eyes turned red. This was her surprise for him. No wonder she was so mad. She was hiding from him. Holding the thin ultrasound report, Peter cherished every word. This was their baby, the one they'd waited 5 years for. Peter tried calling Tracy again, but no luck. He sent message after message. "Wife, where did you go? I got the surprise. I have so much to say to you. My brother-in-law had a conflict. I didn't tell you sooner because I didn't want you to worry, but it's sorted out now. I've messed up. Punish me, but don't hide. I'm scared." No response. By dawn, Peter hoped Ethan could give him a lead. Is Tracy with you? Why would she be here? Aren't you celebrating your 5th wedding anniversary with her? Peter felt a chill. He desperately searched his contacts but couldn't find any of Tracy's friends. He even asked his own friends. You dreaming? How could your wife be with me? Peter wandered aimlessly, unable to think where Tracy could go with the baby. He stayed up all night. The moment the door opened in the morning, he looked up eagerly. Wife, you're finally back. But it was Carrie. Mom, do you know where Tracy went? Bloodshot eyes, Peter was grasping at straws. You still care about her? You better worry about yourself. Carrie said darkly. You and Linda made the trending news. Peter stumbled back, as if hit. Carrie rattled on, missing your anniversary was my first clue. If she could have kids, you wouldn't have to look elsewhere. I'm telling you, don't get soft now. If she wants to stay as part of the family, she needs to help clear this up. Peter took the phone from Carrie. There were 2 pinned photos. The first, under the blue rose sea, he was embracing Linda, kissing passionately. The second, Tracy, captured in the background, alone. Peter's last sliver of hope shattered. Tracy saw it firsthand. How could he now invent a lie? The affair he thought he'd hidden so well. He never had feelings for Linda. He chose her because she reminded him of Tracy. Suddenly, all the things he overlooked with Linda came rushing back. Tracy found out everything the day she was back at the family dinner. Or maybe even earlier. How challenging had these days been for her? He loved Tracy so much. He swore he'd never make her sad. When did everything change? His eyes brimmed with tears. His vision became blurry. Their first child. A stillbirth at 7 months. He knew it was the pills Carrie gave Tracy. Tracy didn't want to take them, but he convinced her, eager for Carrie's approval. When the baby was lost, Tracy was devastated. But he couldn't even own up to his mistake. He was terrified that Tracy would blame him. In the next 4 years, Tracy went through 6 IVF attempts. Each failure increased his guilt and depression. The constant smell of medicine at home choked him. In Carrie's endless persuasion, an appalling thought crept in: having a child would fix things. So, when Carrie introduced Linda, he foolishly accepted. With Linda, he found a glimpse of Tracy's younger self, vibrant and lively. For a moment, he escaped the guilt. He craved more. He was even planning to wait for Tracy to fail another IVF attempt before bringing up the idea of adopting a child. Bring back the kid he and Linda had, to make up for the gap. But he forgot, failing to realize that not noticing isn't the same as nothing happening. Tracy, the girl who took care of her brother at 13, wasn't someone who would compromise. When the truth would be out was just a matter of time before Tracy left him. Peter couldn't stop his anxiety. It wouldn't happen, right? For the sake of the child, Tracy would forgive him. Peter, are you listening to me? Carrie's voice suddenly rose. You need to have Tracy join you in a video and make a statement in the company's name. I'll have Linda stay at home until everything dies down. Why should she cooperate? Carrie hesitated. It's because she can't have children, she began. We both can't have kids, right? Isn't that because of you? Peter retorted, leaving Carrie lost for words. Have Linda get rid of the baby. Are you crazy? Carrie began to ask when Peter interrupted. Tracy is pregnant. It took a while before Carrie finally spoke. Linda's is almost due, she can't get rid of it. Our family can afford 1 more kid. Besides, Tracy losing the baby last time wasn't entirely my fault. She's pregnant now but didn't tell us. Isn't that suspicious? Enough already. Peter's voice halted, cold sweat running down his back, remembering what Tracy once said. The doctor suggested I try new meds. It might increase the chance of IVF success next time. What exactly were those meds she was using? Peter rushed to the living room, remembering the bag of medicine was always on the coffee table. But before, he never bothered to check. Now he wanted to see it but couldn't find a trace. Peter searched for Tracy's medical records on his phone. The words miscarriage hit his eyes like daggers, chilling him to the bone. Tracy miscarried. And she didn't want him anymore. No, Tracy wouldn't do that to me. She's too soft at heart, Peter murmured to himself. He couldn't bring himself to think about what kind of document Tracy handed him to sign yesterday morning. Peter desperately called Tracy's doctor. Didn't you know? Tracy came in alone for the procedure yesterday morning. Peter's eyes turned red as he hoarsely asked, did she say anything? No, but before the procedure, she asked if it would hurt the baby. The doctor hesitated. Tracy seemed unaware that last time the issue was due to the wrong traditional medicine. Peter sank into a chair, the metallic taste of blood in his mouth. Beside him, Carrie looked extremely uncomfortable. What kind of wife did you marry? That was a kid of the Peter family, and she dared to get rid of it. Peter, listen, if she doesn't want the child, then Linda. Carrie's speech was cut short as she met the dark, hateful gaze of Peter. You hate me? Shouldn't I? Peter hated Carrie, hated Linda, but most of all, he hated himself. Carrie, overwhelmed, reddened her eyes. You have no right to hate me. I birthed and raised you. Linda's pregnancy was your approval. If you touch her child, fine, but don't call me mom again. With those words, she turned and left. Peter sat in a daze for a long time, then had someone get the hospital surveillance footage. When it arrived, he hesitated for several minutes before daring to watch it. He began trembling. The footage showed Tracy and him as well. Yesterday afternoon, he had accompanied Linda, who was feeling ill, to the hospital. He told her he wouldn't let anything happen to her or their baby. Meanwhile, Tracy was right there, still bearing the loss of their own child. Peter's eyes were bloodshot, a strangled sob escaping his throat. He replayed the footage over and over, tracing Tracy's figure leaning against the window for support, heartbroken beyond words. When Tracy needed him, not once was he there. He promised to protect her forever, yet every hurt came from himself. In the surveillance, Tracy took out her phone. Peter matched the time with a message Tracy had sent him. Your surprise is ready. So, the ultrasound was not her surprise, this was. As the footage ended once more, Peter finally tore his gaze away. Tracy's whereabouts, have they been found? His assistant spoke cautiously over the phone. After arriving in Italy, Tracy bought tickets to several countries. For now, we can't trace her location. Peter almost dropped his phone. Tracy's intentions were clear. She didn't want to be found. She wanted a clean break. But he couldn't let go. The past had been overbearingly beautiful. How could he bear to lose it all? Tracy, forgive me one more time, please. I promise you won't be let down again. Online, chaos ensued with Peter's infidelity garnering backlash, leading to a boycott of Peter Group products. But Peter remained in the nursery, glued to his phone. He made call after call, knowing it'd never go through. He sent message after message, pleading and desperate. No response. The despair of losing Tracy almost broke him. Click, the door swung open. Instinctively, Peter looked up to see a woman enter. Light returned to his eyes. Honey, you're back, Peter stumbled forward, pulling her into an embrace. Please, don't leave me. I beg you. Peter, why would I leave you? Linda's voice hit him like cold water. Auntie said you've been locked in here and wouldn't come out. I was so worried. Before Peter could respond, he seized her throat, a vicious glare that seemed to want to tear her apart. You dare come here? Did you say something to Tracy? Carrie burst in, pulling at him frantically. Let go. She's carrying your child. Unable to budge him, Carrie panicked. Even if you kill her, will Tracy come back? The question drained Peter of strength. He released Linda. She crumpled, terrified, gasping for air. Peter, trust me. I didn't say anything. I've always known you only love her. Being able to bear your child is enough for me. Gimme your phone, Peter demanded. Tears streamed down Linda's face as she handed it over, showing no trace of panic. She had deleted Tracy's number and would have left no trace of their conversations. I never wanted to fight her for anything. Please understand. Get out. Carrie couldn't take it anymore. Tracy left on her own. You've gone crazy enough. Linda is no worse than her. For now, Linda will stay with me. When you come to your senses, make it up to her with a wedding. You can't let the child be illegitimate. Get out, all of you. Don't dirty our home. Carrie was furious, pulling Linda out. Linda looked back. Peter was back at the table, staring at the ultrasound and storage box. She smirked. 5 years of marriage, 2 deaths, and 1 injury. He owes a blood debt, destined never to see Tracy again. With Carrie's support, it would be Linda's turn eventually to step into Tracy's shoes. The villa fell silent again. Peter mechanically pulled out his phone to send yet another message to Tracy. Sis, can't you come back and take a look? I can't do without you. Have some pity on me. The message vanished into a void, breaking him completely. Babe, I know I was wrong. You're the only one I love. I don't want the kid, I just want you. I'm begging you, don't leave me. Hit me, scold me, I don't care. He repeated, over and over. In the end, there was only desperate sobbing. But the person he wanted to apologize to heard not a single word. 2 days later, still no word from Tracy. Yet Peter was bombarded with messages from Linda. Peter, your mom is taking good care of me and the baby. Don't worry about us. I can't stop thinking of you. What do you think we should name the baby? I know you chose me because I resemble Tracy. She's not around, you can see me as her. I don't mind. One was from Carrie. I'm hosting a dinner tonight to introduce Linda to the family. If you've come around, join us. Peter's eyes burned red with anger. He'd never let anyone replace Tracy, not even a look-alike. Peter carefully smoothed the ultrasound before driving to Carrie's house. Peter, I knew you'd come around. Carrie welcomed him, thrilled. Help Linda entertain the guests later. Peter casually handed her his phone. Mom, I brought you a gift. Carrie looked down at the screen. One look, and she fell into a nightmare. Carrie and Matt were high school sweethearts, known as the model couple. But in that video, ever the doting Matt had his arms around a young woman. She was in her early 20s, laughing, resembling young Carrie. Carrie stormed into the living room, slapped Matt hard. Tears streamed down as she spoke. How could you do this to me? Answer me. Matt shrugged her off impatiently. I'm just following your lead. Linda is your gift to our son. I've done better, I didn't bring a child calling you grandma. Carrie was crushed, trembling and crying. 43 years with your father. We were married. What did I do wrong? Where's his conscience? What about Tracy? What did she do wrong? Peter's eyes burned with insanity. A knife only hurts when it cuts flesh. His mom felt it. And so did he. None of them deserved peace. Carrie sat on the couch in despair, eventually focusing her gaze on Linda. She shouted, "Get out, all of you!" Throwing whatever she could reach. You're all the same, no good. Peter walked away without looking back. Outside, Linda chased after him, crying. Peter, what about the baby and me? I'm scared. Peter paused. Linda had her faults, but she didn't deserve a death sentence. The child was innocent, someone he had anticipated for over 8 months. I'll send you money. Take care of yourself. No, please. Linda clung to his sleeve. I love you. Visit us sometimes, please. Peter was about to refuse when his phone rang. A call from home. "Mr. Peter, Tracy sent something for you." Peter was overwhelmed, rushing off without considering anything else. He shook Linda off, speeding home. She stumbled, eyes full of malice. The person she'd worked hard to drive away was back. The 30-minute drive took Peter 15. He stumbled, covered in mud from falling. Ignoring everything, he dashed inside. "Darling, you're finally back." But the living room was empty except for a delivery man, facing away. "Mr. Peter." The delivery man turned, handing him a package. "From Tracy, please sign." "Where is she?" "Where?" "Mr. Peter, $1 million. I can give you $1 million now." "I really don't know." He was helpless. This package was sent 5 days ago at the airport, scheduled for today. Peter was crushed. Tracy had done it on purpose. She cut off every avenue to find her. He was wrong. But how could she be so heartless, leaving no hope? Peter opened the package, finding only Tracy's phone. He turned it on. Hundreds of messages made it buffer for several seconds. Mostly from him. Yet Tracy never saw a single one. Peter's eyes burned red. One message froze him. From Linda. "Leave on your own dignity, or it'll be humiliating when you're thrown out. Eventually, you'll have to give me Tracy's spot." Peter clicked through Linda's chat logs, unleashing Pandora's box. The pregnancy photo, sent by Linda. The rose garden visit, orchestrated by her for Tracy to see. Everything he'd done with Linda at night, Tracy knew. Even the encounter at the house. Moments he'd overlooked came vividly back. Minutes before Tracy blocked Carrie, Carrie mocked her as barren. Still, he believed Tracy wouldn't notice, preferring peace. Then, he blamed Tracy for blocking Carrie. Peter clutched his chest, heartbroken and suffocating. Everything came crashing down. If it were him, he would have lost it long ago. He can't even imagine how Tracy got through those days. She was carrying his child back then. What the hell did he do? All of Tracy's suffering came from him. The phone rang, it was Linda calling. Peter's eyes filled with rage. How does she still dare to call Tracy? He's clearly fed up with you, how do you have the nerve to come back? One child aborted, the other miscarried, both died because of him, and you still come back to him? Are you pathetic? Do you have to lose your life for him to get that he truly doesn't love you? No, that's not right. It took you 4 years to barely get pregnant once, it's probably gonna be harder now. What, are you thinking of coming back to be my kid's nanny? Every word cut like a knife, stabbing Tracy in her most vulnerable spot. Peter's breathing was heavy. If Tracy was the one hearing this, how would she feel? Why so quiet? Linda waited, then let out a mocking laugh. Now you've got some shame. I can wait, I can play the good guy. I'll let my son call you mom one day to make up for your inability to have kids. Linda, you're looking for trouble. Peter said through gritted teeth. The other side went silent, and after a few seconds, Linda spoke in a trembling voice, Peter, it's not what you think. It was your sister who first cursed me. You know how much I care about the baby. She can curse me or hit me, but cursing the baby is something I can't stand. You care about the baby too, you understand how I feel, right? But for a long time, she didn't get any response from Peter. Just heavy breath after heavy breath pulled her heart to the edge of a cliff. Linda cried, calling his name, Peter. The call abruptly ended. Linda shuddered, feeling her belly unconsciously. Peter only kept her around for the child. As long as the child remains, he wouldn't harm her, right? The room's heater was on full blast, but for half an hour, Linda was restless, breaking into a cold sweat. The door swung open, and Linda turned sharply. Meeting Peter's frosty gaze, Linda screamed. Peter, let me explain. Linda, I told you from the start, Tracy's my limit. Peter inched closer, his presence suffocating. She's the one I treasure. As for you, you're dispensable. Where do you get the guts to bully her like this? Just as Linda tried to escape, he grabbed her. Peter held her neck against the couch, tightening his grip. Fear peaked, Peter was going to kill her. She struggled, grabbing an ashtray and hitting him hard. Peter staggered back, instinctively letting go. Blood trickled down his head, staining half his face. Linda was so scared her legs went weak, trying to crawl away. But she was pulled back. Nowhere to run, Linda went all out. Isn't 2 kids enough for you? Now you want to kill your third? Peter stood frozen. Linda stopped struggling, raising her head with a smile. What's wrong, Peter? Now that she's gone you want to cherish her? Too late. Blood still flowed from his head, the stark contrast making his face ghost-like. His eyes hollow, he stumbled outside. The moment he left, Linda rushed and locked the door. A notification popped up on her phone. Photos of her being kicked out by Carrie and news about Tracy's disappearance were trending. So, Tracy didn't come back. Linda's belly ached, and she immediately called for an ambulance. If she can give birth to this child safely, she still has a shot at improving her status. Peter's place. He locked himself in the nursery again, the only place that had traces of Tracy left. It was his last piece of hope. Even though everything in here kept reminding him that he was the one who killed his own child and destroyed Tracy's love for him. Blood dripped onto the table. Peter frantically tried to wipe it with his shirt, but more just kept falling, leaving him more and more panicked. Sis, I'm begging you. I can't take it anymore. I just can't hold on. Just give me one chance, please. Just one. Peter's back gave way. He was choking on his words, unable to speak. But his mind brought back memories of when he first started dating Tracy. Honey, how come you're so easy to please? Just a box of steamed shrimp dumplings makes you so happy. Back then, Tracy smiled earnestly. I'm easy to please because I love you. If the day comes and I don't, it doesn't matter if you die right in front of me, I wouldn't even look. Now her words came true. She left him without hesitation, never to come back. The phone rang suddenly, it was Ethan. Peter didn't answer. The calls came one after another, but Peter ignored them. Soon the calls stopped, but before long, there was a knock at the door. Mr. Peter, Tracy's brother is here. Peter carefully wiped the table clean, holding his head to avoid blood dripping everywhere as he headed outside. In the living room, Ethan's eyes were blazing. He broke free from the servants, grabbing Peter by the collar. Peter, where's my sister? How can she just disappear? What did you do with her? Peter began to laugh. Ethan's veins bulged. Answer me. If you hurt her, I'll kill you, got it? She left. Peter pried Ethan's hands off. We're both pitiful. She doesn't want me, and she doesn't want you either. Stop saying nonsense. Peter, do you believe I won't? What have you done? You don't know? Ethan's pupils contracted. Of course, he knew. But his sister hadn't been able to have a child in 5 years, and her chances of ever having one were slim. As a man, especially in a family as prestigious as Peter's, not having kids was not an option. Letting Linda have the baby and then sending it to his sister was a win-win solution, preventing Tracy from going through more IVF struggles. Ethan had thought it was a satisfactory solution for everyone. But seeing his own panic, Peter laughed again. You know what you did, and so does your sister. Ethan shivered. I did it for my sister. She's been through 4 years of IVF with declining health, and the pressure from your mom was too much. I feared she couldn't take it. If she adopted Linda's child, it would shut your family up and relieve her. Peter punched Ethan in the face, then kicked him over. He didn't hold back, each punch landed heavily, until he finally stopped. Was it really for her, or for yourself? I let out a sarcastic laugh at Peter. I helped you start your business, and you liked the benefits. You helped me hide stuff from your sister because you thought it'd impress me and get more of my support. Ethan, ask yourself, would your sister really want you to help her like this? His secret was out, and Ethan turned pale. There's no way Tracy would want that. If she did, why would he go along with Peter, exhausting his mind to hide things? Tracy was pregnant, she had an abortion, and the baby was lost. Plus, her first baby stopped developing because of a problem with the medicine my mom gave her. Ethan was shocked, unable to say a word. Look at you now, it's all coming back to bite you. Peter said to Ethan, but it was like he was saying it to himself. Tracy doesn't want you, you're like a stray dog. No, she wouldn't, my sister. Even if Tracy comes back, Linda's kid will remind her of what we did. Ethan's face was drained of all color as the housekeeper dragged him out. He went home, beaten and bruised. Standing at the door, he remembered the way Tracy looked at him from the taxi, sending chills down his spine. Ethan stumbled inside and pulled up the security footage from that night. The moment he found it, his heart sank. Tracy followed right after he and Peter entered the house. While he deliberately dawdled in the basement, Tracy stood motionless in the living room. As he fetched the wine, Tracy asked where Peter was. Looking back now, that was his sister giving him one last chance. And just like always, he lied to her. The last look she gave him from the taxi meant she was done with him. Ethan slumped in his chair, shaking his head instinctively. No way. Tracy always cared about him the most. During the hardest years after their parents' accidental deaths, she never thought about leaving him. He made so many mistakes. In his reckless teenage years, he skipped school and hung out at internet cafes and clubs. It was his sister who always brought him home. All the hard-earned money she made was spent on him. And she never truly blamed him, not even once. She said, "Sister won't give up on you, so you can't give up on yourself either. Anytime you're ready to learn, I'll start over with you." She forgave him so many times, why couldn't she forgive him just once more? Tears filled his eyes. Ethan hit his own head uncontrollably. But how could he forget? He's always owed Tracy. Tracy doesn't owe him anything. Sister, I'm sorry, I realize now. Ethan completely broke down and fainted. When he came to, he found himself in a hospital bed. Through a fog of consciousness, he overheard people talking. That's Peter's mistress, huh? I heard her baby's due any day now. It's so unfair. Tracy spent 5 years with Peter and still lost out to a woman who could have his child. Poor Tracy. The voices drifted away, but Ethan heard every word. His nails dug into his palms as a wild idea formed in his mind. Peter said Tracy could never forgive them as long as Linda's child was around. But what if the child disappeared? Ethan yanked out his .4 and headed toward the maternity ward. He searched around until he finally spotted Linda by the elevator. Linda. Linda stared at his bruised face for a few seconds before recognizing him. She stepped back, protecting her belly. What happened to you? Peter took out his anger on me. What about you? Ready to pop soon? Ethan glanced at her belly, and his voice softened suddenly. My brother-in-law will get over it. This is the only heir to Peter's family, they won't ignore it. Linda, I've helped out with you and Peter. Now that my sister's not around, you're the only one who can put in a good word for me. Linda finally smiled. As long as you're sensible, we'll work things out. I always repay my debts. Where are you headed now? I need to go to the 17th floor for an ultrasound. Should be just 1 floor up, right? Ethan glanced at the elevator. It was still a bit away. How about I help you up there? You've got to remember my help. Linda didn't think much of it and offered her hand. Ethan guided her into the stairwell, leading her upstairs. My brother-in-law said before, once you have the baby, you'd be sent far away. This baby raised at my sister's side, calling her mom, won't be any different than her own, right? But how could a paid childbearer dare covet my sister's things? Ethan's voice grew colder. Goosebumps rose on Linda. What do you mean? I warn you, I'm carrying the heir to Peter's family. If you touch me, Peter's family won't let you off. Ethan, it hurts, let go of me. He almost snapped Linda's arm. Help. Ethan gave a rough shove, and Linda tumbled down the stairs, slamming onto the landing below. Blood pooled and stained the ground. The pain, the baby. Linda couldn't move, the pain was so intense she couldn't even scream. She looked at Ethan, pleading, please, save my baby. Ethan didn't budge. Is this how much it hurt Tracy when she gave up her baby? The blood on the landing spread, trickling down the stairs. Linda's breathing grew faint, consciousness slipping away. Ethan watched for a moment, then took out his phone and snapped a photo, posting it on social media. Sister, forgive me, please. It was the only way he knew how to reach Tracy now. A scream echoed after someone swung open the stairwell door. The unconscious Linda was rushed to emergency care, with Ethan following along. During the emergency, police arrived. Ethan calmly extended his hands. Once the rescue's done, I'll go with you. An hour later, the emergency room doors opened. The baby couldn't be saved, and the mother had a massive hemorrhage. They had to remove her uterus to save her life, and she'll need monitoring in the ICU until stable. Ethan smirked a little. Sis, look, Linda's kid is gone. She can't bully you anymore. He looked at his phone expectantly, but there was no response from Tracy. He knew it for sure now, Tracy wouldn't forgive him. Ethan was shaking all over, breaking down and sobbing uncontrollably. His post had completely blown up online, and Peter's family was back in the spotlight. Ethan wanting Tracy's forgiveness meant he was at least aware of Peter's affair, maybe even covering for him. God, one is your husband, the other your brother. Putting myself in Tracy's shoes for even a second made me feel suffocated. The harshest knife always comes from those closest to you. The news hit Peter immediately. Assistant spoke cautiously, Peter, the board wants you to issue a statement to clear things up and calm public opinion. If not, you'll have to step down as CEO. Peter picked up his phone and posted his first tweet in days. Honey, everyone who hurt you has paid the price. If you come back, I'll do whatever you want. Is that okay? His response pretty much confirmed what people speculated. Stepping down as CEO seemed set in stone. The assistant opened his mouth but couldn't find the words. He just took the PR plan off the table and sighed, giving Peter one last look. If only he had known where things would end up, he wouldn't have done it in the first place. Right now, besides Tracy, nothing else mattered to Peter. He's being viciously attacked by people online, with curses of losing love forever and dying a bad death flooding in. He tormented himself by scrolling through comments, trying to find some clue about Tracy. But from dawn till dusk, he found nothing. This only deepened Peter's despair. Mentioning Linda's child to Ethan was intentional. He clung to a shred of hope. Maybe if Tracy's only family were in trouble, she'd come back. But she didn't. He had no idea how to win Tracy back. He tweeted several more times. Honey, we can adopt a daughter you love, you teach her, and I'll spoil her, okay? If you don't want kids, that's fine too. Just having you by my side for the rest of my life is enough. Every day without you is agony. The small nursery had become Peter's prison. After the first tweet, Peter posted every day, hopelessly clinging to any sliver of hope. Wait, Miss Xiang, you can't. Linda burst in amid the commotion, flinging a storage box across the room. Peter's expression changed abruptly. He dragged Linda out of the room, throwing her to the maid. If she comes in again, you're all fired. Peter returned to the nursery immediately, carefully putting the syringe into the storage box. Linda, held tight by the maid, screamed at him desperately. Peter, do you have a heart? The dead one is your child too, and you won't even look. The child had already formed. He almost opened his eyes to see the world. How can you be so ruthless? Peter, were you ever fond of me? By the end, Linda was hoarse and exhausted. She had been with Peter for nearly a year. He was really good to her, seemingly willing to give her anything but a title. She couldn't help developing feelings, which led to greed. She wanted to marry Peter and have him forever. Yet right now, Peter didn't even glance at her while arranging and cleaning those items, as if those lifeless things Tracy left behind were more important than a living person. Only when Linda was too spent to cry did he finish with the storage box and leave the nursery. Peter, you said before, you liked me. Why did I like you? Aren't you the one who knows best? I'm no match for her. Peter, you've ruined me, destroyed my life. Peter's expression remained unchanged. You knew what you were from the start. You can't take the money and then covet what's not yours. Do you deserve to be compared to her? Linda fell into complete despair, crying till she couldn't breathe. Mr. Peter. A maid came with an envelope. A courier just dropped this off. It's addressed to you and Tracy. Peter looked at the envelope, feeling a pang in his heart. He was reluctant to even touch it. Mr. Peter? Peter finally took it. After a long pause, he dared open it. Inside was a divorce certificate. These days, Peter hadn't dared to dwell on what Tracy had him sign that morning she left. But the reality he had been avoiding was laid bare, bringing him to his knees. Linda laughed harshly, seeing the divorce papers. Peter, she dumped you. You deserve it. Can't wait to see your downfall. Peter didn't hear her, still stunned, staring at the divorce papers. Linda saw no point in staying, so she left. The face that brought her and Peter together now made her a target for gossip. Isn't she, Linda? Looks like she's been kicked out. Being a mistress never ends well. Her child's gone too. Karma. It's just a shame about the child, with a mom like that. Hearing this, Linda stopped, holding her stomach in pain. Her hand instinctively went to her belly. The baby, innocent, never had a chance because it grew inside her. Linda took out her phone, opening Tracy's chat. All the messages she deleted seemed to flash before her eyes. The past year felt like a nightmare she couldn't wake from. In that dream, she was harsh and vile. She typed 3 words, I'm sorry. No response, of course. Even knowing her fault, there was no turning back. Linda squatted down, sobbing uncontrollably. In the nursery. Peter wanted to tear up that divorce certificate, but he just couldn't bring himself to do it. Seeing his and Tracy's names side by side was the closest he'd been to her in a while. Every day, Peter posted on Twitter, apologizing repeatedly. He confessed his wrongdoings to everyone, searching the comments for clues about Tracy. He wasn't doing well, and genuinely regretted it. Anyone could see that. He locked himself in the nursery room all day, only leaving to follow leads given by people online to find Tracy, but he found nothing and came back. Carrie, his mother, couldn't bring herself to neglect her only son. Peter, look at you. Is this even like you? Will you just stop living without Tracy? Mom, I can't help it, Peter replied hoarsely. She's all I can think about. I can't help it. Carrie's eyes welled with tears. Even if you want to find her, you need to pull yourself together, or she won't want you like this. Peter, I won't stop you from finding her. I'll even help, but you can't go on like this. Do you remember what Tracy loved about you? Mentioning Tracy, a glimmer of hope returned to Peter's empty eyes. Yeah, she doesn't like me all messy. She said she loved seeing me in a suit. He rushed to shave and change clothes. Watching this, Carrie couldn't shake the pang of sadness in her heart. After Matt's affair was exposed, he didn't come home anymore. The CEO of Peter's company changed, and their family's status in the clan diminished. Looking ahead, the days seemed bleak. Tracy might be found, but even then, she might not come back. Suppressing her unease, Carrie made a call. Find Tracy at all costs, and inform me right away if there's news. Tracy had dreamed of traveling since she was little. Her parents' sudden death delayed this dream for 19 years. It wasn't until she left that she picked it back up. In her first month away, she went to the city she had always yearned to see to recuperate. She met her college senior, Eric, there. In an unfamiliar place and not in the best health, Eric helped her a lot that month. Tracy, sensitive to emotions, noticed Eric's feelings surpassing mere friendship, so she chose to move on to another city. Despite being married for 5 years, she at least no longer worried about money. As for Peter's repeated online apologies, even if she didn't see them, there were always people on her travels who brought them up. During a meal, 2 girls at the next table mentioned him again. Peter posts everything online now, including his mistakes, letting people judge. He cheated, sure, but it's not entirely understandable. When Tracy had that miscarriage, it wasn't his intention. He just wanted kids, and his family was pressuring him. Otherwise, he was pretty good to Tracy. The only issue was that Tracy found out. Otherwise, she might have stayed happy with him. I think she's soft enough to forgive him eventually since no one else might treat her better than Peter. Tracy listened through to the end and finished her last bite of noodles. As she stood up, she made eye contact with those girls. They looked at her, wanting to say something but hesitating. Tracy smiled, "Don't worry, my heart's hard enough now." With that, she paid and left the restaurant. It wasn't that she demanded Peter be exceptionally good to her. It's just that Peter had promised, and she believed him. If he couldn't keep that promise, she didn't want him. She gave up the child, left her phone, and sent over the divorce papers. She had not left any room, yet some still thought she should return. "Tracy," someone called. She instinctively turned aside. Just a few steps away stood Eric, holding a camera, tall and smiling. There was a click, capturing the moment. Tracy was so surprised to see Eric approaching that she couldn't find the words. "I told myself if I ran into you again, my luck hadn't run out. Tracy, what I said when I was 22 still holds true." Eric was 2 years older. When she was 20, she was busy with school, work, and pulling her reckless brother out of internet cafes and clubs. Eric's confession was merely a small episode in her life. Feelings seemed luxurious, and Eric couldn't fit into her plans. Tracy was stunned for a moment, then tried to speak, but Eric interrupted. "Want to bet on something? Here's the wager, if I win, you give me a chance to pursue you." Honestly, Tracy was intrigued. "What's the bet?" "That we'll meet again in the next city." Tracy didn't think she could lose. Even Peter couldn't find her, let alone Eric. "A bet?" His tone was casual, but there was a slight tremor at the end of his words. "All right, see you then." She walked past Eric and moved on. Eric exhaled deeply, a smile touching his features. "See you." At the restaurant entrance, the girls were reviewing the photos they had just taken. They captured Tracy's profile. "Should we post it?" "Yeah, we were going to anyway." They exchanged a glance and hit send. The photo quickly reached Peter in the trending topics. Joy brought tears to his eyes, and after checking the location in the photo, he rushed to the airport. "Honey, wait for me." The plane landed. Peter's excitement only grew as he made his way to the restaurant. But standing at its doorstep, fear gripped him. 3 months had passed. She must have seen his apologies and promises, maybe forgiven him a little. Before, all he had were rumors. The photo and location were his first solid leads. She must have forgiven him to give him this chance. Surely, after being in love for so long, she couldn't just abandon him. Peter forced away thoughts of Tracy's resolute decisions, convincing himself over and over. Clutching a box of shrimp dumplings he brought from far away, he entered and showed the photo to the owner. Tracy had used a bed and breakfast meal voucher for lunch. Peter exchanged money for that voucher and hurried to the place. The quaint bed and breakfast boasted local charm. Handmade beaded curtains swayed at the entrance, scattering romantic light under the hazy afternoon sun. Only then did Peter remember Tracy once said before they married, she wanted to travel and explore different places. He had promised to join her on weekends and holidays. But somehow, he never got it right once. At least he owed her, and he could spend the rest of his life making it up to her. Peter had already stepped inside but turned around and went back out. He headed to the flower shop across the street and picked out a bouquet of purple roses. He had so much he wanted to say to Tracy. One of the most important things was, he'd never forget her favorite color again. Once upstairs, Peter finally took out the steamed shrimp dumplings he was holding. The door was slightly ajar. He couldn't wait and hurried over. "Babe, I brought your favorite steamed shrimp dumplings. It took a while on the way, so they cooled down. How about I take you to get freshly made ones when we get back?" There was no response from inside the room. "Sis, I'm not asking for you to forgive me right now. Just watch what I do. I'll wait until you're ready to start over with me." Still, no response. Peter felt his throat dry out, his hand trembling as he pushed the door open. Inside the room, there was just a cleaner busy tidying up. It was obvious the guest had checked out. Peter's face turned pale instantly. "Where's the previous guest?" "They just checked out, catching a flight." The purple roses fell to the floor. Peter immediately turned and dashed out the door, heading for the airport. Meanwhile, Tracy was at the airport, planning on heading to the next city. While waiting, Tracy suddenly thought of Eric. She hated hassle, never shared travel photos online, and never talked to anyone about her travel plans. Where did Eric get the confidence to place a bet on their next meetup? Her phone pinged with a trending search, Peter's 1,000-mile wife chase. She glanced at the comments below. Saw him chasing her. Peter went to the restaurant in the photo. Peter went to the rental place. The purple roses are definitely for Tracy. No clue what's in his arms, but it must mean a lot to him and Tracy if he's holding it so tightly. Tracy recognized it right away. It was the steamed shrimp dumplings that Peter was cradling. But it seemed he forgot. The shrimp dumplings represented his wrongdoing. And he had lost the right to be forgiven long ago. The boarding announcement came over the broadcast. Tracy put her phone away and saw Peter rushing through the airport, drenched in sweat. He looked around frantically, scanning the crowd. Suddenly, as if sensing something, he looked toward Tracy. But all Peter saw were the backs of many travelers pulling their luggage. He looked away and began showing people the photo on his phone, asking about her. At a foreign airport, not caring about appearances, he called out for Tracy again and again. After nearly running through the entire airport, he finally got some info. She was sitting here half an hour ago, her flight's already taken off. She even looked over when you came in. Do you guys really know each other? If so, why didn't she respond when you called her? Peter froze in place. Just missed her by half an hour. He was so close to seeing her, yet somehow, he was still too far away. Peter was drenched in sweat from running, but his heart felt like it had plunged into an icy pit. She watched as he foolishly darted around the airport, unwilling to cross even a little bit of distance to meet him. At that moment, Peter realized clearly. Those hints she left weren't opportunities. She never intended to take him back. Did you guys get in a fight? Sounds like you really messed up. Seeing Peter's lost expression, a fellow traveler couldn't help but offer comfort. But girls have soft hearts. If you try hard enough, maybe you can win her back. But she was hard to win back now. Peter felt his throat dry painfully. Thanks, she's my wife. I'll win her back. The next day. As Tracy's plane landed and she turned her phone on, she saw more trending news about Peter. Peter's 1,000-mile wife chase comes up short. A photo was pinned at the top, capturing both her and Peter's reflections. Tracy's eyes chilled. After hitting the uninterested setting, she switched off her phone. She was truly annoyed. She had clearly drawn the line with him, but he just kept clinging on. Tracy dragged her suitcase out, absent-mindedly glancing back once she reached the door. There was no Eric. Tracy shook her head, trying to clear her thoughts. What was she thinking? No way that would happen. She refocused and didn't look back as she left the airport. She planned to stay here for 7 days. According to her itinerary, Tracy explored every corner of this city, and before she knew it, it was the 7th day. There were no new messages in her chat with Eric. The bet he suggested was probably just a joke. Strolling through the cherry blossom park, she was so charmed by the beauty that she wanted some full-body photos. She turned to the person nearby, holding out her phone. "Hi, could you take a..." Her words stopped mid-sentence when their eyes met. It was Eric. He didn't take the phone. He instinctively took the camera to snap some photos of her. Once done, Tracy still felt dazed. Eric lowered the camera, smiling gently. "I won." There was a subtle ripple in her heart. After a pause, Tracy finally spoke. "I booked a flight for this afternoon. Well, I'd be honored if you'd let me join you on the next leg of your journey." For some reason, Tracy couldn't bring herself to say no. That afternoon, Tracy and Eric's plane just took off. At the same airport, Peter's flight had just landed. Following the clues from online commenters, he traced every place Tracy had visited, only to realize they had missed each other again. Late at night, he stood alone at the airport, feeling lost and dejected. The steamed shrimp dumplings had long turned sticky. Carefully, he opened them and took a bite. A single tear fell inside. He didn't know how many times he had scrolled through the comments under the trending news, seeking any trace of Tracy. Now, trailing behind the path she left was the only way he felt like he hadn't completely lost her. Ding! A message appeared from Carrie. She had found Tracy's current number. Peter's hands trembled. He nearly dropped his phone but finally managed to dial the number. The phone rang. "Babe, the shrimp dumplings have gone bad. I'll get you fresh ones, okay?" Silence from the other end. Peter's voice became even more humble and cautious. "I know I was wrong. I shouldn't have lied to you. There's nothing between Linda and me now. Her child is gone too. Babe, I'm begging you, forgive me this once. I truly can't live without you. As long as you come back, I'll pay any price." No response came from the other side. "Wife, please don't," Peter's voice shook. The call ended before he could finish. He called back, but she had blocked him. An overwhelming despair took hold, suffocating him. Carrie called him right after. "Mom, can you help me find her? I miss her so much, but she won't answer my calls." Carrie's voice was strained. Peter was too proud to ask for help unless he was truly desperate. "Maybe let it go, okay? Mom's begging you. Come back, leave the past behind." "But I can't, I just can't." Silence filled the line. Carrie listened to his muffled sobs, her eyes turned red. If only things were different. Peter and Tracy would have been the perfect couple, and their son would be 4 years old now. Mom will keep looking for her. But finding one person in a sea of people was tough, especially when Tracy didn't want to be found. Another month passed. Peter missed chance after chance, spiraled downward, even ended up in the hospital. Tracy had set her phone to not show anything related to Peter. She was fully immersed in her travels and had visited 2 more countries with Eric. That night, as she packed for her next destination, there was a knock on the door. Carrie stood there, looking worn out. Tracy's smile faded. "Peter's in the hospital. I didn't tell him you're here, otherwise he'd chase you down. Can we talk? You don't really want him chasing you all over, do you?" Carrie gave a bitter smile. The word struck a chord, and Tracy let her in. "Just 5 minutes, I'm in a rush. Tracy, Peter's dad, and I divorced. He found a girl just like I used to be. Peter knew and kept it from me. Now I finally understand how you felt back then. I owe you an apology for everything, even about the baby and Linda. Carrie bowed deeply. But Tracy felt none of the resentment she thought she would. After seeing too many belated apologies, she was more irritated than moved. Peter's public apologies and relentless pursuit only made things worse for her. 2 minutes passed before Carrie straightened up. My situation now is my own doing. I promise I won't interfere between you and Peter anymore. Tracy, give Peter another chance. Can you? Tracy pressed her lips together. Carrie's half-gray hair and humbled posture were pitiful. Carrie handed her the phone, revealing a video of Peter. He was half lying in a hospital bed, and 4 drip attached, his hospital gown hanging like a sack on his emaciated frame. He seemed truly remorseful. Tracy paused, stunned that Peter had put himself through such a change in less than 6 months. Peter then called, and Carrie put him on speaker. Mom, did you find Tracy? Will she give me another chance? Carrie's eyes pleaded with Tracy for an answer. Tracy spoke slowly. Peter, it seems you forgot. I gave you many chances. You blew every one. Peter's voice quivered. Honey, I really know I messed up. So what? Tracy chuckled. Can you bring back the 2 children? Can you undo sleeping with Linda? From the moment I walked away, I never planned on coming back. Peter, I find you disgusting. Tracy glanced at Carrie. 5 minutes are up. Excuse me. And no, Tracy, we've been together for so many years, you can't. Tracy left, leaving behind his desperate cries. Carrie sighed. Peter, she's gone. That sentence was Peter's final blow. His eyes turned blank, and the next moment, he bolted for the door. The 4 lines snapped, blood streaking out, but he didn't flinch. Peter's body had long since reached its limits. He hadn't run far before collapsing, unconscious. When he woke, he disregarded all protest and checked out. He shut himself back in the nursery, surrounded by memories, refusing food or water. At night, the nursery door swung open. Get out. The second Peter looked up, he rushed over, joy surging through him. He hugged the girl tightly. Wife, you're forgiving me, right? You know, I've searched so long. I was always so close, but I could never find you. I got some shrimp dumplings. Let's eat something, okay? She opened the shrimp dumplings and held one to his mouth. He automatically took a bite, and she offered him another. Eat more, it breaks my heart seeing you like this. Peter stared at her, not moving. So similar. More than Linda. Can I come in and eat with you? Just as she stepped in, he went wild, dragging her out of the room. Ah! The girl screamed in fright. Get out, now. Peter, stop it. Carrie rushed over to intervene, letting the girl leave. Mom, recreating this won't make it better. Do you want Tracy to leave me for good? Peter's eyes blazed. But she's already gone. Carrie's lips trembled, words she couldn't voice. You can't go on without food and water. What else can I do? I just want you to eat. Before she finished her plea, the nursery door slammed shut. Carrie almost collapsed, tears flooding her face. And the shrimp dumpling he ate was soon vomited into the trash. Peter pressed the ultrasound image to his chest, drifting to sleep. In his dreams, he and Tracy had a daughter. She looked so much like Tracy, a princess he doted on dearly, though he cherished Tracy even more. The dream shifted to their proposal day. Sis, will you marry me? I swear, in this life, I'll love only you. Tracy, eyes moist, gave him her hand. His palms were sweaty with nerves, trembling as he slid the ring onto her finger. Though he had imagined Tracy saying yes countless times, when she did, tears of joy overflowed. With great care, he slipped the ring onto her finger. But in the next second, the ring slipped to the floor. And Tracy's smiling eyes turned cold as ice. I don't want to, because I feel like you're dirty. Peter was suddenly jolted awake and rushed to the bathroom, trying to wash himself over and over. He almost scrubbed his skin off. His eyes were bloodshot as he mumbled incoherently. "Wife, I'm clean now, I'm not dirty anymore. I even threw up everything I ate, please don't dislike me. I'll tell them not to come over anymore." After half an hour, Peter finally came out. Seeing how he looked, Carrie was about to go in when Peter stopped her. "Don't come in, Tracy doesn't like you. I need to keep her things safe here. I can't upset her anymore." Carrie was heartbroken and sat by the door. "I can't stop you, so I'll just stay here with you. Seeing you like this isn't any easier for me. Peter, you're hurting me more than anything. What do you want so you can let it all go?" Peter was silent for a long time. "Mom, I want to see her. Even if she really doesn't want me, I need to hear it from her. Otherwise, I can't let go." Carrie's throat was dry. "But even if he sees her, can he really let go?" "I'll help you. But you can't go about it this way. Let me make you something to eat downstairs, okay?" At the mention of Tracy, Peter finally agreed. "Okay." Across the ocean. Here. The path was uneven. Eric extended his hand. "Be careful." Tracy hesitated for a couple of seconds before taking it. They had been traveling together for a while now. At first, Tracy stuck to her pre-made itinerary, but later she just followed Eric. Every place she planned to go, it seemed Eric had been there. If it was worth seeing, Eric would take her. If not, he'd have other options. And she ended up liking all of his choices. At a fruit wine shop in an alley, Eric let go of her hand. "You'll like this fruit wine, give it a try." Tracy picked 3 types, and the sweet and sour flavors quickly won her over. The wine's alcohol content wasn't high, but Tracy felt tipsy. When they left, Eric again held her hand. "Watch your step, follow my footprints." Once they were out of the alley, Eric let go. It was getting dark. As they walked side by side back to the hotel, Tracy spoke up. "Eric, I'm not getting any younger." "Me neither. I mean, you've got other choices, like younger, prettier ones. But those choices aren't you." Tracy stopped in her tracks. "You know, I've had a miscarriage and an induced abortion. The doctor said it's unlikely I'll get pregnant again." Before she could finish, Eric pulled her into a warm embrace. His voice was gentle and sincere. "It's all in the past, don't feel sad." Touched, Tracy felt a pang in her chest. "Let's go back to the room." Tracy nodded and followed him into the elevator. Her phone buzzed with messages from Carrie. "Tracy, can you see Peter one last time? He's in a bad state, almost driving himself crazy. I know I have no right to ask you, but could you please have mercy on me? See him this one last time, I promise he won't bother you again." Tracy pressed her lips together. The elevator opened, and Eric, having walked a few steps, turned to look at her. "What's up?" Tracy tucked her phone away and caught up with him. Their rooms were across from each other. Tracy opened her door but didn't go in right away. "Eric. Do you want to come in and sit for a while? I mean, should we give it a shot?" Caught off guard, Eric froze. As Tracy calmed down, he spoke first. "Yes." He stepped forward, closing the door behind him. He trapped her between his body and the wall, his gaze intense, breaking his usual composure. "Should we keep this going, Tracy?" His voice was husky, making Tracy blush. She panicked but didn't hesitate. "Yes." Eric chuckled softly and cradled her face to kiss her. Soft as a feather at first, then intense and fervent. Everything spiraled out of control. The next morning, Tracy was awoken by Eric's phone ringing. Half awake, Eric picked up the call, and soon he was wide awake. Tracy could hear part of it. It was about a blind date. "Sis, I told you before, I'm not doing blind dates." Eric hung up hastily and turned to Tracy, concerned. My family worries about my marriage a lot. They've set me up on dates, but I only went to the first one by accident. I haven't gone since, don't misunderstand. Tracy, back to her senses, trusted Eric. She believed Eric genuinely liked her. But Tracy wanted to be selfish. She couldn't handle another Carrie situation. There was more to life, and she didn't need a relationship to feel whole. Eric, let's not do this. Eric looked pale. I'm sorry, but you can go. Tracy lowered her gaze. My journey's come to an end for now. Silence enveloped the room. After a moment, the door opened and then quietly closed. Tracy felt a pang of sadness but breathed deeply. She had been moved, but she loved herself more. She was here to live her best life, not to endure endless pain. Tracy picked up her phone to respond to Carrie. Okay. One last time, and let's end this for good. Tracy booked a flight back home. Eric left early. Tracy stayed for the last 2 days solo before heading home. When her plane landed, she went straight to the restaurant they had planned to meet. Peter was already there, who knows how long he had been waiting. The moment Tracy arrived, he stood up, staring intensely at her. Wife. He wore the suit Tracy had custom made for him on their first anniversary. But he looked so thin that the suit hung loose, failing to capture its former charm. Tracy felt no stirrings of emotion or pity. She sat across from him as he carefully handed over a bouquet of purple roses. I used to like purple, but not anymore. Because of you. Tracy took the roses and set them aside indifferently, leaving Peter's eyes brimming with tears. Please. Peter, if you insist on calling me that, we have nothing to discuss, Tracy cut him off with a cold expression. Tracy, Peter's voice shook. I tore down the rose garden and replanted it with purple roses. I even brought over the chef who makes your favorite shrimp dumplings, opened a place right by the house. You can have them whenever you want. I had the fireworks redone, this time, I'll watch them with you. Tracy let out a small laugh. Does it mean anything to you, Peter? She asked lightly. That single line made Peter's eyes well with tears. After all these years together, can't you forgive me just once? Sure, I can forgive you, Tracy replied. Peter was taken aback, but his eyes lit up with hope. As long as you're okay with me being with other men afterward. When I'm with you, I'll be texting him, liking his posts. I might even sneak out after you fall asleep, spend the whole night with him. I could even have his child and expect you to help raise it. With each word Tracy spoke, Peter's face grew paler, overwhelmed by just the thought. Can you accept that? She asked. Peter instinctively shook his head. Tracy, I can't. And that's why you have no right to demand my forgiveness, Tracy continued. To be loved by me, you need to give the same loyalty. Otherwise, you're not worthy. Tracy stared coolly as Peter choked up. Peter, you weren't a good husband or father. The only thing you can salvage now is being a decent son. If not, I'll lose all respect for you. We're divorcing. I'm taking the half I'm entitled to. If you're unhappy about it, sue me. Otherwise, don't come looking for me if you have any dignity left. With that, Tracy got up and left. Peter's cries echoed behind her, unable to make her turn back. She blocked Carrie's number, and finally, Peter and his drama were out of her life for good. The once envied couple, whose relationship had once captivated everyone, is now old news, overshadowed by bigger scandals. Tracy moved into a new place, settled in comfortably. A month later, an unexpected visitor knocked on her door. It was Eric's sister, Kathy. Somewhat uneasy, Tracy invited her in and made her some tea. Miss Kathy, I think there's a misunderstanding. Eric and I haven't talked for a month, Tracy explained. Kathy sighed. Can you come with me to a place? In a daze, Tracy agreed. Kathy took her to Eric's villa. They headed to the attic, where there was a password lock. It's your birthday, Kathy hinted. Tracy typed in her birthday, and sure enough, the door opened. The attic walls were covered with photos of her, from college to recent trips. The pictures from when she attended events with Peter were there too, but only she was in them. Kathy handed her a booklet from the table. Tracy opened it, surprised. It was her college travel journal she thought she had lost. She began to flip through it slowly, reading her handwritten travel plans. If possible, my first stop would be Italy, to feel the evening sea breeze and wait for the sunrise. The second stop is to see the cherry blossoms. I heard the fruit wine there is the best, though I'm not sure where exactly. The sheets were yellowed, clearly well thumbed. No wonder Eric had known her next destination. He had remembered her wishes, even traveled to those places alone. On the last page, there were 2 handwritten lines from Eric. Meeting someone too stunning when you're young makes everyone else seem like a compromise. And I refuse to compromise. Her heart stirred. There's also this. Kathy handed her another book. The title made Tracy freeze, Plan to Steal Her Heart. Could it really be what I think? She wondered. It was. Tracy couldn't fathom how someone as reserved and gentle as Eric could draft so many plans to win her over. As she turned the pages, she suddenly stopped. Forget it, she'll be upset, one entry read. Her heart skipped a beat. To be honest, I was more shocked than you when I saw all this, Kathy shrugged. You think you know someone, then realize you don't. The family even suspected he might be a little off. Tracy laughed. But I know he's been committed to this, to you, for 12 years. We tried to talk him out of it, but he was set. Kathy apologized. I truly didn't know you were with him that morning when I called. I'm sorry for raising such a brother. Please, if possible, be patient with him and don't despise him. Tracy was amused. Can I take these 2 books with me? Kathy nodded, and Tracy left with the books in hand. On the way, she texted Eric to meet up. Passing a drugstore, she stopped in. Her period was late by 2 weeks. Back home, Tracy used a pregnancy test, stepping into the bathroom. 3 minutes later, the result came. 2 lines. She was stunned. It seemed the universe knew the hardships she'd been through, gifting her an unexpected surprise. The doorbell rang, jolting her back to reality. She opened the door, and there stood Eric. He was sweating bullets, and you could tell right away he'd rushed over as fast as he could. Tracy, I know what you're worried about. Before she could speak, he started to share his thoughts. You don't need to worry about my family. They'll love you. I already told them I don't want kids. A surgical consent form was handed to her. The day after returning from the country, Eric went for a vasectomy. His sincerity was right in front of her, and Tracy's heart softened a little. Eric. I'm here. He sat up straight, every hair tense with anticipation. Tracy placed the 2 booklets in front of him. She had never seen Eric so flustered, his face flushed red. It's not what you think, Tracy. Please don't misunderstand. I'm not a creep. Tracy chuckled. She slid over a pregnancy test too. So you don't want it? Eric was completely bewildered. I do, Tracy cut him off. You better think it through. I want this baby, but I don't necessarily have to marry you. I might one day become your wife, the mother of your child, or other things, but before all that, I have to be myself. She allowed herself to be a little selfish now, no longer losing herself for anyone else. From now on, the one she loved most had to be herself. Okay. Eric's eyes reddened, and he repeated firmly. Tracy, I said okay. Tracy looked at him and couldn't help but laugh. Time flew by, and 6 months had passed. Everyone knew Peter adored his wife. 2 years ago, during an earthquake, Tracy was trapped, and Peter risked everything to go in after her. When they were rescued, he was covered in injuries but still comforted the scared Tracy. The news captured the moment when Peter cried while holding his wife. Every day around this time, Eric would accompany Tracy on a walk. Sure enough, he saw them again. Eric carefully watched over Tracy, whose belly was quite big now. They had heard it was a girl. She had a good life. Her in-laws liked her, she got along well with her sister-in-law, her husband adored her, and she was about to have her own child. Only one thing was missing, this happiness was meant to be his. Now, he didn't even dare to show up in front of her anymore. Peter watched them fade into the distance, his vision blurred with tears. Carrie called. "Mom, I'll be right home. Don't worry." At least he could still heed Tracy's advice and be a good son. Peter took a deep breath and left the cafe. He was stuck in the past, unable or unwilling to move on. Each day, only the moments he caught a glimpse of her made him feel alive. But for him, that was enough. It was the ending he deserved.